It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The final dress fitting, the seating arrangements meticulously planned, the caterers finalizing the menu, everything was perfect. Until I saw the text message. It was on Will's phone, left carelessly on the kitchen counter, the screen lighting up with a new notification. A message from a name I didn't recognize, addressed to a group called Bridal Babes. The first line, the one that flashed across the screen, sent a chill through my entire body. Don't forget our little rendezvous before the honeymoon. I should have seen the signs. I'll never forget the feeling of my stomach dropping to my toes. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah, and this is the story of how I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. Before I dive in, please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I'm curious to know where in the world my story will reach. Will and I have been together for 5 years. 5 years of what I thought was unwavering love and commitment. We met in college, bonded over shared dreams of travel and a love for old movies. He was kind, supportive, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. He proposed on a moonlit beach during a vacation to Hawaii, the waves crashing softly as he got down on one knee. Of course, I said yes. The wedding planning was a whirlwind, a mix of excitement and stress. My mother, bless her heart, took the reins, ensuring every detail was perfect, from the floral arrangements to the cake flavors. I let her. Mostly, I was busy with work, juggling my career as a marketing executive with the demands of wedding planning. I thought Will was equally invested, attending venue visits and offering his opinions on everything from the color scheme to the music selection. But now, staring at that text message on his phone, a different picture began to emerge. A picture of deception, betrayal, and a future I no longer recognized. The message was short, but its implications were devastating. I unlocked his phone, my fingers trembling, and scrolled through the rest of the conversation. There it was, a series of messages between Will and a group of his closest friends and family, detailing plans for a rendezvous with his ex, Emily, right before we left for our honeymoon in Italy. They were talking about sneaking off to the hotel bar for a drink, just the two of them. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The man I was about to marry, the man I had pledged to spend the rest of my life with, was planning to betray me before our marriage even began. The honeymoon in Italy, a place I'd dreamt of visiting since I was a little girl, now felt tainted, like a symbol of his deceit. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to scream, to confront him, to demand an explanation. But something held me back. A sense of icy calm settled over me, a resolve to uncover the truth before making any rash decisions. I carefully placed his phone back on the counter, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I couldn't let on that I knew anything. I needed to gather more information to understand the extent of his betrayal. Over the next few days, I became a silent observer in my own life. I watched Will, studying his every move, listening to his every word. He seemed oblivious, acting as if nothing was amiss. He smiled, made jokes, and even offered to help with the last-minute wedding preparations. It was all a charade, a carefully constructed facade designed to hide his deceit. I, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of activity. I continued with the wedding plans, attending appointments, finalizing details, and plastering a smile on my face whenever Will was around. But behind the smile, I was plotting. I had a plan to expose his lies and reclaim my dignity. I started subtly investigating. I casually brought up Emily's name in conversation, observing Will's reaction. He would tense up slightly, his eyes darting away, a clear sign of guilt. I also started paying closer attention to his phone calls and text messages, noting the times and frequency of his communication with Emily. One evening, while Will was at his bachelor party, I decided to take a closer look at his computer. I knew it was a violation of his privacy, but I felt I had no choice.
I needed concrete evidence, something that would leave no room for denial. I found it in his email inbox. A series of emails between Will and Emily, filled with nostalgic memories and promises of rekindling their old flame. They talked about how they still had feelings for each other, how they regretted breaking up, and how they couldn't wait to see each other again before the wedding. One email in particular stood out. It was from Emily, sent just a few days before, confirming their plans for the rendezvous. "I can't wait to see you, Will," she wrote. "It's been too long. Let's make this night unforgettable." Reading those words, I felt a surge of anger, a burning rage that threatened to consume me. How could he do this to me? How could he betray my trust in such a callous and calculated way? I copied all the emails onto a flash drive, a digital weapon I would use to expose his lies.
Then I carefully erased the evidence from his computer, ensuring he wouldn't suspect a thing. When Will returned from his bachelor party, he was slightly drunk but otherwise seemed normal. He came over to me, wrapped his arms around me, and told me how much he loved me. I forced myself to smile, to reciprocate his affection, but inside I was seething with anger and disgust. "I love you too, Will," I said, my voice trembling slightly. More than anything, the next few days were a blur of activity. The wedding rehearsal, the rehearsal dinner, the last-minute preparations. I went through the motions, all while battling a storm of emotions inside. On the morning of the wedding, I woke up early, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't felt in weeks. I looked in the mirror, at the reflection of a woman who had been betrayed, but who was now ready to fight back. I spent the morning getting ready, surrounded by my bridesmaids, my mother, and my closest friends. They chattered excitedly, their voices filled with joy and anticipation. I smiled and nodded, pretending to share their enthusiasm. As I sat in the makeup chair, getting the final touches done, I received a text message from Will. "Can't wait to see you at the altar, Sarah," he wrote. "Today is going to be the best day of our lives." I stared at the message, a wave of nausea washing over me once again. He really thought he could get away with this, that he could betray me and still walk down the aisle as if nothing had happened. "He's so sweet," my maid of honor said, glancing at my phone. "He is," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. "But he's also a liar. I knew what I had to do." I slipped away from the bridal suite, telling my bridesmaids I needed a moment alone.
I walked down the hallway to Will's room and knocked on the door. He opened it, a surprised look on his face. "Sarah? What are you doing here? You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony." "I know," I said, my voice steady, "but I have something to show you." I pulled out my phone and held it out to him. "Read this," I said, pointing to the text message he had sent to the Brittle Babes group about his rendezvous with Emily. His face paled as he read the message. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with panic. "Sarah, I can explain," he stammered. "Explain what, Will?" I asked, my voice rising. "Explain how you were planning to betray me before our honeymoon? Explain how you've been lying to me for weeks." He tried to grab my hand, to pull me into the room. But I pulled away, my anger boiling over. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice trembling.
"I know everything, Will. I know about the emails. I know about your plans with Emily. I know everything." He looked at me, defeated. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he whispered. I don't know what to say. "Say the truth, Will," I said, my voice cracking. "Tell me why you did this." He hesitated for a moment, then finally spoke. "I don't know," he said. "I guess I just got scared. I love you, Sarah, but I also still have feelings for Emily. I thought I could have both of you." "Both of me?" I repeated, my voice filled with disbelief. "You thought you could have both of us?" "You're a coward, Will. You're a liar, and you're a cheat." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the doorway, his face filled with shame and regret. I went back to the bridal suite, my heart pounding in my chest. My bridesmaids looked at me, their faces filled with concern. "What's wrong, Sarah?" My maid of honor asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I have," I said. "I've seen the ghost of my future, and it's not what I thought it would be." I took a deep breath and told them everything. I told them about the text message, the emails, and my confrontation with Will. They listened in stunned silence, their faces filled with shock and anger. "What are you going to do?" One of my bridesmaids asked. "I'm not going to marry him," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not going to spend the rest of my life with a liar and a cheat." "But what about the wedding?" my mother asked, her voice filled with panic. "What about the guests? What about everything we've planned?" "I don't care about the wedding," I said. "I care about my happiness, and I'm not going to sacrifice it for anyone." I went over to my closet and started changing out of my wedding dress. My bridesmaids tried to stop me, but I pushed them away. "I'm not doing this," I said. "I'm not going to walk down the aisle and pretend that everything is okay. I'm not going to let him get away with this." I changed into a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, grabbed my purse, and walked out of the bridal suite. My bridesmaids followed me, their faces filled with concern. "Where are you going, Sarah?" my maid of honor asked. "I'm leaving," I said. "I'm going to start a new life, a life without Will and his lies." I walked out of the hotel and into the bright sunshine. I took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs. It was a new beginning, a chance to start over. I decided to go to the wedding venue. It was 1:30 p.m., and I knew the guests would be arriving soon. I wanted to make sure everyone knew the truth before Will had a chance to spin his lies.
When I arrived at the venue, the parking lot was already filled with cars. I walked inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The guests were milling around, chatting excitedly, their faces filled with anticipation. I walked up to the microphone, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "Hello, everyone," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I know you're all here today to celebrate Will and me getting married, but I have something to tell you." I paused for a moment, gathering my courage. "Will and I are not getting married today," I said, "because Will is a liar and a cheat." A gasp went through the crowd. People started whispering, their faces filled with shock and confusion. I held up my phone and read the text message Will had sent to the Bridal Babes group detailing his plans for the rendezvous with Emily. The room was silent, everyone listening intently. When I finished reading the message, I looked out at the crowd, my eyes filled with tears. But I couldn't let him get away with it. I couldn't let him betray me and still walk down the aisle as if nothing had happened. I stepped away from the microphone and walked out of the venue, leaving the guests to process what I had said. As I walked away, I could hear the murmurs of the crowd, the whispers of shock and disbelief. I didn't look back. I went straight to the airport, bought a one-way ticket to Europe, and boarded the first plane I could find. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just needed to get away to escape the pain and humiliation of what had happened. As the plane took off, I looked out the window, watching the city shrink below me. I was leaving my old life behind, a life filled with broken promises and shattered dreams. When I arrived in Europe, I felt like a new person. I wandered through the streets of Paris, Rome, and Barcelona, exploring new cultures, meeting new people, and discovering new things about myself. I threw away all the reminders of my relationship with Will. The photos, the gifts, the love letters. I wanted to erase him from my life completely, but I couldn't erase the memories. They lingered in my mind, haunting me at night, reminding me of the pain and betrayal I had suffered. It took me a long time to heal, to forgive myself for trusting the wrong person, but eventually I did. I learned to love myself again, to trust my instincts, and to move on with my life. I never spoke to Will again. I heard through mutual friends that he was devastated by what had happened, that he regretted his actions,
and that he was trying to win me back. But I didn't care. I had moved on. 5 years later, I met someone new. His name was Tom, and he was everything Will wasn't. He was honest, kind, and supportive. He loved me for who I was, flaws and all. We got married on a beach in Bali, surrounded by our closest friends and family. It was the happiest day of my life. As I stood there, holding Tom's hand, I thought about Will. I realized that what he had done had ultimately made me a stronger person. It had taught me to value myself, to trust my instincts, and to never settle for anything less than I deserved. I don't regret what happened with Will. It was a painful experience, but it was also a valuable lesson. A lesson about the fragility of trust, the importance of honesty, and the resilience of the human spirit. He thought he was going to have his cake and eat it too. He thought he could betray me and still have me waiting at the altar. He thought wrong.
Now, I live a life filled with love, happiness, and gratitude. A life I never thought possible after the betrayal I suffered. And that's the story of how I left my fiancé at the altar and found my happily ever after. I hope this story taught you something about love and relationships, and about the importance of staying true to yourself. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel for more such stories.